Hello and welcome back to the making of the Chapel of Zenith. In this video I'm going to be making the pews and the altar for the chapel itself. So as you can see on the screen, I've already got my reference image and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a plane. I'm going to do a bit of extruding and things like that to this plane, but first I'm just going to make it just so it roughly matches the shape. So it kind of comes like this. It's going to need quite a few vertices, so I'm going to put one middle down there. Just so I can get that rough shape. There we are. It's looking a lot better. Just so it gives me that kind of shape here. So what I want to do is just make sure that I've got it more or less right. I want to bring these down just a little bit. Now I'm just going to extrude this up to here. Bring this in. I think I need one more. Just in here. Just to give it that sort of sweeping motion there. I'm just going to put that here. Just doing it by eye. And with this, I'm just going to extrude it. Once I add the modifier, so I'm just going to put a solidify. And 0.1 is probably going to be too thin. Yeah, as you can see, it's quite thin. I'm going to just bump it up just a little bit. I don't want it too thick. Probably about there should do it. So I'm going to go ahead and I can apply that. Then I'm going to come back into the edit mode here. Maybe a bit too thick, but I can change that if needs be. So I'm just going to extrude this out to about here. And then bring these in. Like this. Do one more extrude. May need just another one. I think it's just going to need another one. So this one's not going to need to be huge, so I'm just going to bring that out a little bit. And then these two can just come in here. Just sort of finish rounding this off a little bit. just so it's more or less a rounded kind of shape. Let's bring that out so we can see. I think the thickness of that is pretty good. So that's fine. Now for that, we're going to need to the bottom part now. So I'm just going to bring these in. I mainly can get rid of these here. Let's see if I can. So I'm just going to dissolve the edges. I'm going to dissolve as much as I can with the edges. So those, and those. It just saves on polys really by doing it like that. So I can't really, anything I can get rid of, I will. So this kind of comes out and then goes back in. So if I do kind of like that. And that just gives it that kind of shape that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to bring in what needs to be brought in. So these need to come in a little bit. That one needs to come in a little bit. That one. Then it needs to so if I do the bit of an extrude. No, that doesn't work. That needs to come in just a little bit. Needs to come in just a little bit on all sides. Not by much. Probably about that much there. Then it just needs to come straight out. And that's more or less exactly how I want it. Bring that out just a little bit. And bring this one out just a little bit too. So it gives you that kind of that sort of shape there. Okay, so that's that part done. So now for the tricky part, which which is going to be this here. Now I think what I can do is if I go into mesh and do a couple of circles, I'm just going to bring that here. It is sort of circular, so I'm going to bring it down and then just edit it. So I'll duplicate that, roughly the same sort of size, bring that into there as well, come back to you, and just bring these into the shape. Like so. Just so it follows that shape there and there. There we go. And then what I can do is I can get rid of those vertices. I can bring these in like so. There we are. Okay, so that's that. And I'm going to do the same for this here. I'm going to get the shape. Then I'm going to join them. So it's the long part this is. Getting all these vertices in the right place. I think one more. Done there. And then those vertices can go. And so can that one. Just to bring it in. There you go. So there's that one, and I'm going to select this one as well. So if I select both of these, join them up. Now hopefully what I can do is if I focus in on this one, I'm going to need to solidify those first, I think, before I do anything else. So if I solidify those, put that at 0, and I'm just going to bring that out just a little bit. I think I'm just going to need to do a plane, to be honest. Okay, yeah. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this, but it's making it look like I need to, so I'm just going to go and do a cylinder. Do exactly the same as what I did with the circle, but now I know I've actually got some edges, some faces that I can play with here. So that is going to be way too thick. Just bring that down just to about there, and that's fine. I'm just going to put these into place. Again, just so it's following the curve of this bit of wood here. It's looking fine. So I'm probably getting rid of these now. So I'll get rid of vertices. Yep, that should be fine. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate that and bring that over here. Rotate it. And then line this up to here. And then just edit the vertices. Make sure that they're where I want these ones to be as well. There we go. Just so it's kind of matches that curve as well. There's more or less exactly as I want it. So since I duplicated them together like this, they're already joined. So what I can go and do now is if I come into the edge select and select those two edges, and if I press F, it's going to create this. So this is going to need geometry, obviously. It's going to need some geometry on it, but that will become this bit here. So I'm going to do the same for the bottom bit here. And there you go. Now it is going to need quite a few, so I'm going to put in I'm going to start with that and try and save as much polys as possible. So I've just added in some vertices, just so it's rough really, because I can always add in more as and when. So I'm just going to bring these into the right sort of places. So these two I'm going to bring right the way back to there. That's almost there. So I think it just needs one more than the bottom. So that should be okay now. So if I put in one just here. Just so it gives me that bit here, and I'm going to need another one just in here. So yeah, so just in there. Just so I can get that nice shape, and it's going to need another one just here. That's why I didn't want to do too many at first, because if I can get away with not putting them in, then that's a lot better for me. A lot better for the model as well. Less is more. So I just bring these in to where I want them. Then I can go ahead and add where I need to add. I'm going to need one in here and one there. So this is just so it gives me that kind of nice curve in here, which is what we're after. Doesn't need to be exact. You know, I'm not liking the fact that it's quite high poly around there, but not much I'm going to do about that. So I'm just going to select this and go into edit mode again, and what I'm going to do is, if I select the bottom and then Alt Shift and then click the bottom bit, I can fill it in by pressing F, and I'm going to do the same for the top. So now that's a solid piece. I'm going to set the origin to surface for that. And then I'm going to put it onto here. So as you can see, it's going to need to be quite a bit thicker. But that's fine. So if I put that more or less in the middle, so I'll get rid of that. Put that more or less in the center here. And then I can just puff it out a little bit. I'm going to make it overhang just a little bit each side. So you've got that sort of groove, so it looks like it's actually going into the part of wood. I think what I need to do here, I do need to possibly put on the shade smooth. I'm going to auto smooth it. So it gives it a little bit of roundedness, and I'm going to do the same for this as well. So shade smooth, tick the box. It just makes these bits more rounded, that's all. So these two now, I can select these two, which join them. I'm going to name that as so that's the pew end. I'm going to add these rounded ball-like things. So to do those, I think they're going to be quite simple, because I'm just going to do if I do a sphere, and pop that where I need it to be, so just here, and then shrink it way down, just so it's roughly where I want it. I'm going to bring that up into edit mode and get rid of all those faces. Now I've got that, I'm going to squish it down just a little bit. And then just put it into place. So The other one goes about here. It's kind of one done. I am going to select these as well and join the whole thing up. Ooh, don't know what's happened there. So I'll take that just in case it's that that's done it. Yep. And then I'm going to set that to origin to the surface. So that's one side of the pew done. I do need to rotate that. So rotating the x-axis. By 90 degrees. Bring it up. Now we get a sense to see how thick this piece of wood actually is. I do want it a little bit thicker, so I'm just going to make it a little bit thicker. And I think that works perfectly. Now what we want to do is I'm going to bring my reference box in. Just so I can get a good sense of where things are going to go, really. So if you're going to be sitting, you're going to be kind of sitting kind of here. Your legs dangle down there. So that's about right. So possibly about, let's see how wide it is inside the actual church itself, sort of across, then I can work that out better. So if I just duplicate that for a second, and I'm just going to pop that in. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of a gap between them. So 4 is probably going to be too wide. So maybe a 3? Yeah, 3 people per pew seems about right. So what I can do is I'm going to come back over here. Just a little bit of a gap between them. This is just so I know how wide to put these. And with this one, I'm going to need to put a mirror modifier on that one. So I'm going to mirror it in the z-axis possibly. So yeah, in the z-axis, should apply that. Yep, so in the z-axis, don't merge them. The one I need to do is apply that, select, hopefully it's selected one side. It's got the bottom bit. So it is going to be, so get rid of that. And in those two, hopefully, there we go. That's perfect then. I can bring that in. And just like that side, I can put a little gap at the side. Just like so. And then a cube. Let's come in here. So it needs to be fairly thin. That comes to here. So they're sitting kind of here. Yep. A lot of this is kind of guesswork almost. So I can bring that, just making sure that I've got it in both sides, which I have, so that's great. So I'll set that to surface, duplicate it. And needs to go on the y-axis, so our y then 90. So that'll come about there, I think, just to the top. It will need to come back a little bit as well. So I'll get rid of these 3 squares here. So get rid of those. So there's a little gap at the. There's always a gap in pews by the looks of it. So just want to make sure that I've got this correct. So I think it needs to come down as well. Check this side. Yeah, that side's fine. It was just that one little vertex that needed coming down. So that's fine. Of course, now I can get rid of the faces that I don't need, i.e. the ones at the end, just to get the poly count down a little bit more. So we'll get rid of the faces of the stuff that we don't need. And in the, get rid of that. And I'm going to join them all together. There we are. And I'm going to set the origin to the surface. So that's one pew pretty much done. So I'm going to move that out of the way for a second. So I'm going to just bring that down here. I'm going to bring back my chapel. So I'm going to put that in the center-ish. I can get rid of these as well. So these 3, they can go. So an RZ90, just to rotate that bench. And I'm going to pop it in. So chapel does need to be a bit wider, which is fine. So I'm going to put one kind of here. So 2 and one more. Just past that beam. Select those. Yeah. Just making sure I didn't have any random duplicates. So that side there, and then I can duplicate it to that side there. And now I can see now how wide the chapel needs to be. So it needs to be a little bit wider, but not by much. Also, I think I'm going to need to bring these forward a little bit as well. So I'm going to bring them forward just a little bit. So that's the pews in. I'm just going to simply select everything here. Apart from the pews. So if I select everything and then go in and deselect the pews, it lets me. So now, fingers crossed, no, it's still got the pew selected. So I'm going to take out the pews completely. It'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it? So I just get rid of those. So I'm just going to bring those out. Select that whole thing, and I'm going to make it a bit wider and a bit longer too. So not by much. Of course, it may need to come up a little bit. So now when I put these in, that's much better. There's plenty of room now. So I'm going to bring those back to about there. Then go each side. So I'm probably putting 2 more benches. That's fine. And then the altar can go here. And then the torches can go on the walls. Which that'd be perfect. Just going to bring those back a little bit. And then those ones can come back. So I don't want it kind of on top of that post, really. So now I've got the benches in place. I'm going to go and do the altar next. Add the torches. And there's also going to be a statue as well. But the statue will be in another video, because that's going to be quite long to make the statue. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you how to make the torches and the altar, and that'll wrap up this video. So what I can do now is, if I just move on to the torches, so they can go on the walls, sort of here and here. I do want to decide what kind of torch I want, because there's millions of them. But since they're going on the wall, I think maybe sort of like a brazier or something. So I've kind of got a reference here, so something like this perhaps to go on the wall. I think that looked pretty good. Now I know I did say I was going to do the altar in this video, but I think I'll save that for another video because there's going to be quite a bit of decoration on it, and this video is pretty much long enough. So I think what I'll do, I'll just do the torch in this video and put those in, and then next one I'll do the altar, and then the one after that statue possibly, and just build it up from there really. So I'll just go into the front view here. I'm going to select my chapel here, move that out of the way, and then I shall bring in the reference image. So here's my little brazier thing. So first off, this is kind of I'm going to break it down into sections. So this back section that goes on the wall, that's just essentially a diamond sort of shape. So we can make that by getting this square here and just kind of doing this. And then I shall make it thinner, so it needs to be a lot thinner. And then scale it down. It's probably going to need to be scaled down even more. So I can't find my referencing. So I'll just put in another. So it does need to go down quite a bit more, because it's not really that big. So about there, I think that's about right. And then these bolts either side, I'm going to use our sphere for that. So just bring that in. Select the bottom half of that, delete the faces on the bottom half. Bring it to the front. Scale it right the way down. Then duplicate it for that side as well. And this part, again, that's just going to be another. So we'll get another cube in here. That's sort of like that. It does go to a point at the end. So all we'll need to do is put in a divide and bring that down to there. And I believe it comes to a complete point. So I'm going to collapse those. And that brings that to a point. Make it a lot thinner. That kind of bevels out the middle there. So 1 and 2. they need to come closer in, like so. And I put one in the middle. Bring it out to about there. Needs a couple more, so one there and one there. Just so it smooths it out a little bit. And that's just a cylinder with another cylinder. So we do two cylinders. Well, first we'll do this cylinder. I don't think it needs 32 of them, so I'm just going to bring that down. Probably it's about 12. Saves on poly space then. Going to bring that right the way in. It's quite thin, so probably about there. Make sure it's in the center. It's not that long by the looks of it. So I'm just going to bring this out. About there. I do think it needs to be a bit thinner though. So again, just thin it out. That's looking good. So I'm going to pop that in there. And I'm making sure it's kind of central. Then I can bring in another cylinder. And this one is probably going to need a few more. So I'm going to put that to about 20. So I'll just bring that over. And I'm going to make that its own thing. Just shrink it down in all directions. So I'll just pop that right to the edge there. So that's quite thin. It's about there. Again, that thing behind needs to be thinner. So I'm going to make it about that thick. I'm going to delete those faces. And then come in and just go around these. Just go around pressing F to fill them in. I want to do them one by one because I think if I do more than one, it kind of bring in the fill strangely, and I don't want that to happen. So I just finish going round, make sure that I've got them all. Yep. So I've got all of those. Just bring it in. Probably get rid of that now. So it's starting to look pretty cool. I'm not going to bother with this decoration at the top there. But these do need to be they need to be like that, not huge and sticking out. Okay, so that's kind of the back part done. Now for this. Now, do I want to add in that little board at the bottom? No, so I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm just going to do another cylinder. Again, about 20. I'm going to go into this mode because I need it to go into the center of this thing that we've just created here. So I need to bring that right the way down. Going to put a little gap around it. Again, you're not really going to see the gap, so it doesn't really matter. But as you can see in the reference image, it is leaning forward. And there is a gap behind. So if I make it an even gap all the way around, about that. It's about an inch or so gap, probably. I'm not very good at measuring things. So I think it's at that kind of angle. Make sure it's not clipping in there too much. So I want to bring that back a little bit. I want to give the illusion it's just resting on there. So that's fine. So I'm going to bring this so it comes down to about here. And that would come back to about there. Now I'm not going to collapse that down, but I'm going to taper it down so it kind of comes, not quite to a point, but almost to a point. So I'm just going to squeeze that in, just so it comes down. So it's more or less like a cone sort of shape. And then I'm going to bring that back so it's just resting on the back there. So it looks as though it's at an angle. So it doesn't come up a lot, but I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Now this thing's going to be quite interesting. I do like it, and it is going to be a nightmare to make. But I think it's going to be fun. So let's try it, shall we? So I'm going to do a torus. This is for this part here. I'll just pop that into place. And I'm just going to bring that what I think I need to do is if I get rid of that completely, that torus, Get rid of that completely. And if I put in another one, because I don't need it super thick. So if I put in this one here, it's going to be way too thick. So 48 segments is probably going to be too much. So I'm going to bring down the segments a little bit. Bring those segments down a little bit as well. Bring down the radius just a little bit. Thin it out a little bit. And that looks a lot better. So that needs to go right at the top here. What I'll do, if I need to bring that forward again. Okay. I think the best thing for me to do this is if I straighten this out just a little bit. It's just so I can do it all in one. And then I can add the tilt forward later. In fact, I may have to just get rid of that completely and redo it. So I'm just going to go for a cone shape because that's going to be a lot easier. I'm going to bring down the vertices to about 20. The radius is not going to need to be that much, so it's going to be about that. The depth is probably going to be about that. So that's the right sort of shape that I want. So I think I need to rotate that on the x-axis by 180. And of course it does need to be a lot smaller. Because you kind of grab it by your hand and hold it, so it's not going to be huge. So I think it'd be about that sort of size, roughly. So it's a nice kind of shape. And again, I need to put it inside here. I can always make that ring a little bit bigger. But so I'm just going to bring that out like so. I think that's about right. And of course, this part here needs to come to about here. It's all a matter of just playing around and getting the right look and feel of it. So I think that's much better now. Yes, I believe that looks right. So that can go kind of like that. Don't forget, it is going to be tipping forward. So I shall put this in the center here, roughly in the center, and then bring it down. I think it needs to come down a lot more. It does go right to the top there, so it needs to come up. I think that looks right. So above that, looks as though there's another. That could be the top of this bit here. So if I bring the top up just a little bit. So if I extrude it just a little bit, I'm going to scale it in like so. So how many of these? 1, 2, 3. There's about 8. So if I try every other one, so on that side. Doesn't really matter if there's loads of them. So I'm just going to bring those out. They all need to come up. So first they come out straight. Bring those in. Like so. This is what I meant by it was going to be a nightmare to model. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring those up. So I'm going to make sure the top part's leveled. So it kind of looks like that. And these top parts can come up again. They're just going to come up to about here. And then they need to come out. Bring them in a little bit. I think they need to come up one more. I'm just going to extrude them up. And then they go into their points. So out again, but up again. And then each one of these I need to collapse. Just so it gives it that those little points. There we are. It's looking good. And of course on the inner side there are those sort of circly things. So I'll bring that to the front now. I think I do 2 cylinders. If I bring in a cylinder, bring that way down, flatten it out a little bit. It doesn't need to be that thick, so they're not that thick in there, so about that thick, roughly. There's one there, and there's one above it. So I'm just going to duplicate that and bring that above. So about there. So it's just before it goes into the spikes. Yeah, that needs to be a bit bigger. This one I'm going to bring up a little bit. No one I'm just going to put in place as well. That one may need to come out a little bit as well. No, I think that's fine. In fact, that one needs to come in a little bit. So I'm just going to bring that in all directions. And then select the top and bottom. Delete those faces. Then just solidify. Let's solidify it. I'm only making it solid just in case we get any issues, because sometimes what happens if you just put a random plane in the middle of something, it doesn't show up very well in Unity. I've tried this from past experience, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and there's no explanation for it that I can find anywhere. So I prefer just to put a little bit of a solidify on it, and in that way at least I know that's a solid object, and that's a solid object too. So what I do want to do is that's in the center there, which is good. So if I add, I'm hoping this is going to work, but we shall see. So I'm going to add an empty. Okay, so an empty plane axis. Let's move it over there. I'm going to bring that into the middle here and into here. Well, just in between these two. And then I'm going to bring this up. So I'm going to duplicate that, bring that up. It's probably not going to work, but we can try. So the idea is for this is to get this more or less in the middle. So if I straighten it out, and bring it in, what I should be able to is, using that, I can do an array, I hope. That's the idea anyway. So basically that'll go round that side. It just saves on putting it individually. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to try and set the origin. So if I bring in the 3D cursor and put that here, and then I'm going to set the origin of that to the 3D cursor, and I'm going to come into the modifier and press array. Now as you can see, it's made one next to it, so I need to move that. It's about there. I don't think it's going to work very well because it normally doesn't. So it's just going around on the x-axis. We can try, so that's on the y-axis. That's on the z-axis. It's really difficult to do, so I may just have to do this manually. I think it would be a lot quicker. But I was hoping just to show off the array on this, but obviously it's not going to work. So I'm going to bring that back to the surface, and I'm going to have to do this manually, which is obviously going to take a bit more time, but I think it's the only way really I'm going to be able to do this. So all I'm going to do is bring these round. And just keep going. So to save you from watching me do that, I'm going to go ahead and do this now, and then I'm going to continue recording. Okay, so that took quite a while to do. As you can see, I have done all the bottom ones and the top ones as well. All I'm going to do is this central cylinder. Just pop that into the center here, as close to the center as possible. And then just scale it right the way down. Just so it comes into here. It looks like it touches that. So it sort of comes into there. I'm just going to make it a little tiny bit bigger. And then for the top, that's looking pretty good. So what I will do is I'm going to select these, and I'm going to select this as well, and I'm going to join those together along with that top ring. I'm just going to take that out for a second because I want to join the bottom ring to it as well. So I'll move that out of the way. So it's top and bottom. I think it's more or less joined, so there we go. That's better. It's all because I think this is a bit too tall, so I'm going to bring that back into the center there. I mean, it looks alright, but I think it's a bit too tall. So I'm just going to bring them down a little bit. So make sure everything's selected. I'm going to just bring it down. Bring that down as well. To about there. And I think that looks a little bit better. So there's a top, so I can go into there. That looks slightly better. I think that'll work. And finally, I'm just going to put this into the center again. It does need to be a little bit bigger. The inside there, so just a little bit. I'm going to select that whole thing, join that all together, so that's all one mesh now. So what I can do is now I can bring that down, not forgetting obviously this part here. So I've joined that all together, so I'm going to bring that down. Needs to come across like that, and it needs to come so I'm just going to bring that down to about there. That's looking pretty okay. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that down a little bit more. It does need if I get rid of that point, is it going to mess it up? So I think I'm just going to need to, yeah, so if I select this part here, I'm going to get rid of that. So now I think that is about right for what I want. I may shrink that down a little bit more. So just make sure I've selected it all. I'm just going to shrink it down a little bit more. So I think that looks fine. So instead of what I did before, I'm just going to go back to the cylinder method, because I think it just looked better. So I'm just going to shrink that down very quickly. It needs to come down a bit more. Just so it fits into there. Now it does thin out a bit at the top there. So I'm going to make this part a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to just simply extrude it straight down. About there, maybe a little bit more. So I've got that whole thing now. I'm going to bring that down. Give it an inch clearance right the way around. I'm going to bring back this part now. I'm just going to put it all together essentially now. So putting it all back together. Just going to go back. And I'm going to join. So that can be joined, that can be joined, that can be joined. So that's all one thing. These two can be joined again. Just in case I need to do anything more with it. I'm going to bring it down a little bit more. But you know what? I think I will put that ball on the end. Just so I just finish it off just nicely. So I don't want a huge sort of poly thing here. So 32 segments is going to be way too much. So I'm going to bring that down. Probably about 13. And rings wise, about 10. And it could go right the way down. So I can just come onto the end now. Make sure it's in the center. So about there. Roughly. And I'm going to bring it up a little bit more. It's about there. In fact, that can come down. Yeah, it can come down a little bit more. So I'm just going to scale it down a little bit more. I think that looks alright. Join those two up. Now I'm going to go into this mode and I'm going to tilt it forward. Just by about that much. Bring it back. See what that looks like. Yep. So obviously this ring part. This ring part can be a bit smaller. So I'm just going to make it a bit thicker. Squeeze it in. And squeeze it in again. That looks fine. And then all I've got to do with this part is just bring that forward a little bit. So that's kind of the torch pretty much done. So again, I'm going to join it all up. But no, I won't join it up because I need to... Well, I can kind of texture it as it is, more or less. So I'm going to join it up. Ooh, forgot to add these two. So I'm going to add these two to here as well. Join it all up. So it's all just one piece. Now I can bring that over here and can get rid of these. I'm going to bring that right the way back. I'm going to bring back the chapel into the center. And then get the torch. Wherever it is, there it is. I'm going to name it torch. And now I can start placing it onto the walls. So I think that is a good size, really. May make it a little bit bigger. I don't need too big. So rotate by 90 degrees, and I'm going to put them... I think there could be like two, probably two on each wall, more or less. So I want it fairly close to that wall, which it almost is. So just go into the Y and to this. back. Okay, I think it's about right. So I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. So I'm going to put one there. And another one here. Another one just there. So 2 there. And then the one at the back. Sort of here. I think there needs to be one there as well, just for symmetry purposes. Yeah, that looks good. So now I can hopefully just select these torches. Yep, gonna join those up. I'm going to duplicate them. Make them 180. So I've just rotated by 180 degrees. I'm going to bring them back, and if they don't quite fit, all I need to do is just adjust them. So yeah, so they're way off. So I need to put them about there, I reckon. And they can come back to the wall there. And I'm going to bring them down to about there. So I'll select everything on that one. So make sure I've selected everything. I'm just going to go in and just make some corrections. Just bring it there. So obviously this one's got more windows. It's going to need more torches. So we'll just go there. Go there. And then one more. Just there. So that's a nice little gap that I've got between them. I just want to move that one. This one can come a little bit closer to there. I think they're looking good. So now they're all in. Just wondering, do I want some on the back wall there? No, because there's going to be candles. There's going to be like candles on the altar, and there's going to be 2 like candle stands either side, so I won't need torches, and then the statue is going to come here. Okay, so in the next episode, I'm going to do the altar to this chapel. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this. So I'm going to save it as, I'm going to do Chapel 8. So this is going to be quite a long series, obviously, but you can just see how I made this chapel. So now we've got those bits done, I can go on and I can do the altar next, which is going to be the next video, and then I can do the statue. What I may do, depends on how long each take, I may combine those two videos, but they are going to be quite long. And this entire series of making the chapel is very long, because it does take a while. But for things like the roof and stuff, they're going to be very, very quick little videos, because they're not going to take much at all to do. And that's it for this, and I shall see you in the next video.